Hey guys, it's Veeks with the Small Boat Fishing Channel. If you work on your own boat and you're installing any kind of electrical gear, stick around because today we are going to go over how to do perfect waterproof connections. We're going to start with the ground wire. I'm going to show you guys all the way through once, and then after we're going to discuss the tools and we'll go step by step to show you guys what you guys are going to go through. Alright, here we go. So up to this point, it's a pretty standard crimp, but right here is where we're going to start to make it waterproof. Alright, I know it's going to look a little messy, but that's actually on purpose, and I'm going to show you why in just a second. We actually use all that adhesive that looks like it's coming out. We actually need that. So the way I'm using the heat gun is to actually close the outer end of the crimps. So you're actually going to close it so it's so small on the outside that it pushes the adhesive into the rest of the connector. Okay, and in the same way with the heat shrink, you want to close the ends of the heat shrink first and then tighten it all up to kind of mash and hold up all that adhesive in the inside. It adds another layer of protection to your electrical connection. And that is one solid waterproof connection. Stick around if you want to see more. We're going to go over with the power wire on the bilge pump, step-by-step instructions, and all the tools. The tools, you're only gonna need 3. Number 1, the Cutter Crimper Multi-Tool. This is the spot that you're gonna squeeze the crimp. And this part in the middle is a different type of crimping spot. And at the front of the tool here, you have a wire cutter. Alright, this has got to be one of my favorite tools, is the automatic wire stripper. It's spring loaded and you put the wire in here and it not only cuts it, it strips the end off of it for you. Alright, if you work on your own boat and do any type of electrical work, this tool is a must. It's not only a time saver, it's faster, but it also saves you from pulling on the wire. And then also the old strippers, or the old style, you have to pull on the wire also to strip it, and it's a knuckle buster, especially in tight spaces. So definitely invest in one of these. Okay, so back here is where it grabs the wire and it holds the wire in place as it's cutting and stripping it. Okay, last but not least, the portable heat gun. So you just adjust the gas level, and then when you're ready, you go ahead and click it, and then it'll light up and just give you a slow burn. Okay, and we got a mystery adhesive. Do you guys know what it is? It's that little red stuff that we were putting into the connector and heating it up. If you don't know, we'll go ahead and tell you at the end of the video. So stick around. To give you a better angle so you can see the numbers under the little holes on the stripper. There's little numbers that match the wire. Mine's is a little rusted, but it's definitely there. You can kind of see it. I like to rub a little bit of corrosion inhibitor on the wire before I crimp it into the crimp, just as a little added layer of protection. Okay, so now here is the thing about crimping with plastic or heat shrink. You try not to break the plastic or the heat shrink, but as you're crimping it, it will break through. And that's why we're having to make it waterproof, adding in that additional adhesive, because once you break through the plastic on the crimp, even if you close the ends, the water or the air is still going to get in through these little places where the crimp broke through the plastic. This stuff is gooey, so what you want to try to do is just put just enough into the sleeve on the outer portion here, and as the heat shrink closes, you'll need less, and you watch it pushing out to the top and the bottom, and also through the middle where those little holes that I told you about are going to form once you crimped it. So just kind of watch for that. It is going to be a little bit messy, but that's what we do, is we're going to put the heat shrink over it and then shrink that on top of it, and all that extra will act as a third barrier from the water. So sometimes the wire, the space between the wire and the crimp itself, or the heat shrink, is going to be kind of tight. So when you're putting the adhesive in there, you want to you're going to have to shake the wire around a little bit, and then try to find a little bit of edge there to go and put a drop or two into the heat shrink. Okay, the way I do my waterproof connectors is after many years of trial and error and going from automotive to working on boats. You have to make that transition, and a lot of people don't actually like crimp connectors. They're saying that soldering, a lot of my friends in the business of boats, they prefer soldering, and there are different ways to solder. I go with this because this is the way, to me, that I know is going to work and works in the space that you use. You do not always have a lot of space to move around, especially under bulkheads or under the helm, and using a soldering tool that's that hot and then having to work with solder is really tough. So what I like to do is, in the next video, we're going to show you also about the heat shrink soldering tubes, and we're going to do a little thing on that. So stay tuned and definitely tune in for that one, and we'll explain the difference between crimping and soldering, because there is a difference, but if you're going to crimp, this is, to me, the most effective way. It's slimlined and it looks good also. Okay, so as you can see, the end of the crimp is more of a conical shape, like a cone, and it's kind of closing up that end there and really like attaching itself to the wire. And then you can see a little bit of the adhesive coming out of the top, and then a lot of it running towards the center of the crimp, which is really good because you really want all those extra air spaces to be filled in, so that if water does come into it, it doesn't seep into it and sit inside the crimp. Okay, if you notice, there's a little bit of adhesive bubbling out of the center of the crimp. That's what I was talking about. When you crimping using a crimp connector or butt connector, that's where it broke. The plastic broke, and then now we're filling that in with this adhesive, and you can actually see now that it's all closing up, that it's closing all those little air gaps and all the way out through the center. Okay, the last thing we need to do is just slip on the heat shrink, and you see all that extra little goo that I'm trying to get in there. When we close the heat shrink, all that excess goo is going to add on to the protection of a layer on top or underneath the heat shrink, the outer heat shrink. So it's going to give that real tight protection. Okay, on the heat sleeves, we're going to do the same thing like we did on the heat crimp. Is we're gonna heat it from the ends on in, until we see a little bit of that adhesive gonna coat everything from the inside all the way out. You'll see it bubbling out just a little bit. From here on out, it's just about making sure that the heat sleeve is on real tight. They say to give it 24 hours for the adhesive to fully dry, and that's it. You're gonna have really strong waterproof connections. Stay tuned with us for next week. We're gonna go over the soldering tubes, and there's a little picture over here about the soldering tubes and how they work, because I've tried different ways and I tried them out. Is soldering better? We're gonna find out on our next episode. Thanks.